September 26, 2007. General Motors and the United Auto Workers agree on a new contract ending a two-day nationwide strike. This landmark agreement signified the beginning of the end of an era when employers provided workers comprehensive health insurance, pensions, cost of living adjustments, and income protection during economic downturns. These benefits weren't created overnight, but were the results of decades of sacrifice and struggle by working people and their families. While many of these employer-provided benefits are gone, the struggle that created them continues, a battle which was largely fought in the deepest trenches of Michigan's proud labor history.
For most of the 20th century, Michigan was the leading industrial center in the United States. If you go to Muskegon, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Jackson, there was all kinds of manufacturing. Dodge, Maine was put up in 1914 to make Dodge Brothers automobiles. The iconic automobile factories were Highland Park. It opened in 1910, called the Crystal Palace, because it had so many windows. That was the plant that at one time was producing 40% of the world's cars. One plant. At one time, River Rouge, it was the largest industrial complex in the world. Nearly 100,000 people a day went to work there.
The process of transforming raw materials into a finished product was a grueling one, and for many factory workers, very dangerous.
We had accidents. You could cut yourself quite often on the sheet metal.
It was a very risky job, and the equipment they gave us to work with was very poor, and you had to buy your own gloves at that time. The company didn't supply you anything to work with.
Briggs factory was a major operation to produce automobile bodies. When the streetcar stopped to let off workers for the next shift, the conductor would call out, "The slaughterhouse, slaughterhouse."
In 1935, both the United Auto Workers of America, the UAW, and what later became the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO, were created to help workers in their struggle for seniority, higher wages, and improved safety conditions. But in the turbulent 1930s, the nation's union soon found that organizing workers was one thing. Getting the companies to actually respond to their demands required a much more physical and direct approach.
Workers have one weapon at their disposal, and that is to call a strike. When you work in a factory where you have 50,000 people, and if everyone walks off at once, you cannot replace 50,000 people overnight. If you walk off the job in a company that has 30 people, it might be easy to replace these 30 people unless you have the protection of a larger organization such as a union. John Lewis was president of the mine workers. Phil Murray later became the first president of the CIO. And Jimmy Hoffa did great things for Teamsters.
This union was not born just because of the struggle for another dollar in the pay envelope. This union was born out of the struggle against the inhuman exploitation of the speed-up.
Walter Reuther felt that the labor movement was a social movement, that if you improve the lot of your members' lives, it was good for all workers, it was good for America. Wages are great, paid vacations are fine, seniority, dignity is important, But after that, health care is extremely important. The majority of workers did not have health care, paid vacations, paid holidays, pensions.
We had nothing, but we didn't have dental. You didn't fix your teeth. We just didn't have it. When I had my first son, my brother went and signed a loan to help me get the baby out of the hospital. We had no money to get the baby out of the hospital. That's what you had to do.
In the Second World War, there was a freeze on raising wages. So companies who wanted to keep their workers, particularly unionized companies, decided to give benefits instead.
The UAW standard for insurance became the standard that other unions would work towards, or that people who were not in unionized shops would say, well, you know, I can move over and take a shop, I can be a secretary at General Motors or Ford or Chrysler, and they'll give me these fringe benefits. Do you want to keep me? You should have fringe benefits too.
For industrial workers in the United States, I would say the 50s and 60s were the heyday.
Unions represented about 1 out of every 3 workers in the economy in the United States. They were able to bargain for strong benefits, and if the company did better, the benefits got better. High productivity and unions translated into a middle-class lifestyle for millions of Americans.
Today, 5 times as many children finish high school and 10 times as many graduate from college as in the 20s.
Paychecks rose, families did better, children went to college, and health care while you were working was secured, and pensions and health care when you retired were there.
Well, you well know that Ford's made the announcement today regarding a Mexican assembly plant, in which they said they are going to invest some $500 million. We kind of feel that's going to cost us some 25,000 jobs in the auto industry in this country.
Change for the majority of people is a difficult thing. Most Americans would like to pretty much have a job, have security, and do that for a long period of time till they're retired. Unfortunately, it doesn't work.
3 things have now come together. We're in a global economy where the standards in countries elsewhere in the world often define what will be bargained over in the United States, number 1. Number 2, unions now represent 7% of workers in the private sector, not the 35% they did in the 1950s. And number 3, healthcare costs have skyrocketed, putting an unusual burden at the bargaining table at particularly the moment when we are very much in a global economy.
There are those who say, well, we needed unions in the 30s, we don't need them anymore. I don't buy it for a bit. I believe the role of unions is twofold. One is to protect their members, whether it's plumbers, carpenters, boiler makers, boiler operators. It's to protect the group of people from exploitation. I think the second thing it does is it forms at large the only body that can be a watchdog against corporate excess. Whether it's 1886 or 1920 or 2009, I happen to believe honesty, integrity, honor still hold. However, the world around us changes, and how you implement those values will change.
But some things will never change. That's why the Monroe County Labor History Museum has dedicated itself to preserving the past and sharing with the world the stories that are so deeply woven in Michigan's past and America's future.